Thank you. We've talked about China, so I'm going to talk about the other big elephant in the room right up front, which is the oil sector. You mentioned the oil curse and that you're working with the Norwegians and others. What specifically, and this question comes from one of our colleagues from Chevron, what lessons are you drawing from other, either African or other developing countries' approach to managing natural resources? I realize you're at the early phase, so you're still figuring out what you're going to do, but what kinds of lessons are you drawing?
Our own national experience, in which what we call the major concessionaires operated at enclaves, totally unlinked to the rest of the economy. That's been our national experience, and what we're trying to do differently is to make sure that, first of all, they show corporate social responsibility, and that means they have to have a specific program of doing things in the communities in which they operate. Those social programs could include training, roads, hospitals, schools, and in the case of Chevron, for example, although they have not even drilled, but just signing the agreement with us to get a block, they've already spent $10 million. They're doing some, building one of our vocational schools to prepare them. They've done something with one of the hospitals. And so that's one of it. The next one is to make sure that we do have linkages, and that means that we're going to require them to outsource some of the activities so that Liberian, particularly Liberian enterprises, can be able to render some of those services, and they don't become just a control environment in which they do everything, which has been the experience we've had to date.
So you asked me to push you a little, so I'll take that opening. There's always a tension between trying to attract foreign investment and to promote Liberianization. Sometimes it can make foreign investors a little nervous when you start talking about this. I would imagine that a lot of companies, the first thing they would say is, what oil service companies, what Liberian oil service companies? So how do you think about managing that tension between wanting to be globally competitive, wanting to attract all that capital and the technical expertise that allows you to reap the oil harvest, but also trying to keep your foot on the gas that the companies are having linkages back into the economy?
We've done a lot to ensure non-discrimination in most of our procurement laws and all of our transactions. We're coming under great pressure because we still do not have the level of Liberian participation in the economy that's useful for us for sustainability. Part of it has been the deficiency on our side of the lack of access to capital, management, technology, and we've got to do something to improve that, to make them more competitive. Our procurement laws allow for a margin of preference, but it's small enough to make sure that there's no discrimination against foreign enterprises. We don't have all the answers yet as to how we can improve Liberian entrepreneurship. Recently, our central bank allocated a certain amount through the banking system where they could get better terms and conditions to support small and medium-sized enterprises, enabling them to start the process. But for us, it still remains a challenge. I hope there are lessons out there that we can use to be able to do that. I mean, we look at the experience of, say, Ghana, Nigeria, where their entrepreneurs have reached a level where they can not only compete nationally, but internationally. And we want to see if we can use some of those lessons of experience.
So you mentioned that unemployment is a big issue. We've got a question from Amina Muhtar from Johns Hopkins. And she asks, how can African leaders tackle the unemployment and alienation of youth, which characterizes many countries? And she asks, how do we prevent an African Spring? I presume referring to North Africa. So how do you think about that?
Well, I think we have to be more efficient in the allocation of our resources. I think we have to open up the economy and make it more market-oriented, make it more competitive. Spending more on human resource development so that the young people who are the unemployed today have a skill to be absorbed, you know, when the economy is growing, are all the things we can do. But, you know, our population is young, and our population rate is high. Liberia population rate is just high. And so when I go around the country and I see the thousands and thousands of young children, I wonder how we're going to respond to their educational needs, how we're going to prepare them. The graduates of our schools, we can't absorb them right now. And so even we're talking about vocational training, but if they get trained and we don't have the jobs for them to, you know, it's going to be a problem for us. So that's a major challenge now. African Spring, we've already had our spring, gone through the period of militarization and dictatorship and big man and all those type of things. You know, we're moving now to a different level of democracy, but we've got to manage expectations, and we've got to make it perceived that we are accountable, we are transparent, we are managing our own resources well. And I think if that message goes across, not only in word but in deed, then we can have the time that it takes for us to respond to the needs of the young people.
Okay.
There we go.
So I've talked about big oil, so now I'm going to go to the other end of the economic spectrum. We have a question from Mona Davies from Africare. Madam President, welcome. Countries like Ghana and Nigeria have prioritized shea and nut processing as an income-generating activity for women. Does Liberia have any plans to follow suit?
We've got oil palm that we're trying to promote. Shea nut processing.
That's the question.
We may have some of that, but we've not really identified that as a major source of either export or something. No, we haven't. What we're doing is trying to revive our oil palm industry. And we've attracted support investment from Asia, from Malaysia, and from Indonesia. And they're helping our farmers to do large-scale oil palm plantation where we have a comparative advantage. Our soil and our climate is just suitable for that, and so we're taking advantage of that.
So I'd be curious to hear, you know, there's a lot of excitement about investing in Africa. I think the McKinsey report and other reports have started to generate interest outside of the traditional niche in boutique investors in Africa. So I'd be interested whether you're visibly seeing a different class of investors come through Monrovia, and if so, what kinds of questions are they asking you about Liberia? And I'm thinking beyond oil, beyond rubber, beyond mining. Are you getting, what kinds of questions are you getting from people?
Is the investment safe? Do they have recourse to the courts? Are they going to be able to get the skills that they need? Can they be assured that they don't have to bribe government officials to, you know, to get a transaction done? We try to answer positively to all of that, and sometimes where we've fallen behind, like recourse to the courts, and we've just now done a new legislation for a new commercial court. We've just had a new commercial code, all of that intended to give them the assurance that recourse will be there and that there will be fair play. Is our tax system going to be, you know, excessive, and can they rely on us being on par with the rest of the region so that the free movement can be there? So trade. So those are the questions they ask. But like I say, we're not up to where we want to be in all of those, but we're moving in that direction, and we feel the fact that we've been able to be so successful in mobilizing the private investment tells us that that's to us a demonstration of confidence in the progress we've made and in our commitment to continue the reform program.
Okay. Well, we've got time for just one more question. I know we've talked a lot about Liberia.
You've gone through 60 already?
But I wanted to ask that I think that your legacy will be much greater than Liberia. So we have the last question I want to give to forgive me for mispronouncing your name, David Trigot from the Library of Congress, who asked, Madam President, why do you think there are so few female heads of state?
I could throw that question back at him and say, why hasn't there been one in America at their level of development? No, I think the answer to that is we all know that there has been male domination all over the world. Women are mothers. They spend a lot of time taking care of children, and sometimes they put aside their professional ambition to be able to take care of the home. In the case of Africa, where there's poverty in the family, the boys tend to get the preference for an education, and the girls end up going to markets with their mothers or going to the farm. And so this is why we've been trying to reverse that. And you know, I'm proud that Liberia is 11 years ahead of America in that regard.
I think that's a great way to end it. I want to thank you. You're chanting a little Nancy Birdsall there as well. I want to thank you for what I know is a very quick trip to Washington, for making time to be with us today. We appreciate it. I think the tremendous crowd that we were able to get on fairly late notice, late in the day, is a testament to your draw, and that people still want to come and hear what you have to say and to hear more about Liberia, and hopefully this will continue to grow. So I want to thank you and to wish you luck in the future.
Thank you, Ted.